ahead and get us started.
Hold on 1 second, guys.
Oh, sorry.
Here we go. All right, it looks like we're ready to go now. The board has been convened in executive session. We apologize for the delay. We've had some technical difficulties to iron out tonight, but we are now reconvening to regular session. And the next item on our agenda for this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would all join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our next item on the agenda is the superintendent's presentation.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Charles. Thank you for everyone's patience. We have two items here for superintendent presentation. The first is I just want to do some introductions. There are some names that will show up on the agenda later tonight, and I wanted to introduce a couple of these names in person, I guess virtually, so that you know who we're talking about and considering. So the first, I believe they're in now. If I'm looking through my screen, I see Jen Mott on my screen. I see Mark Merzanowski's a face that we know. And then I also see Diana Todd. Perfect. You're all here. So board, I'd like to introduce a couple of them and just have them introduce what they're doing now. And then later tonight, when we talk about a little bit of the role they're considering and what we're considering, you'll know who they are. So the role that you're currently in. So Jen, do you want to start? Because I know you are right in the middle of some work right now and you're working hard offsite, but please introduce yourself. Tell us what you're up to now, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So my name is Jen Mott and I am currently an assistant principal at Fairfield High School. I'm finishing up my third year there and looking forward to joining the team at Mason Middle School. But right now, currently, we're passing out diplomas individually to all our students. So we're braving the heat and enjoying this individual ceremony with all the families out here. So I'm kind of muted and here through my AirPods, but excited to join you virtually in this way. So thanks for having me.
Jen, thanks for jumping out of what you're in the middle of and joining us. And we will we'll contact you and be in touch. Thanks so much, Jen.
Absolutely.
All right, Deanna Todd, do you mind introducing yourself, reminding people that you came in and stepped into a role, and what was that role that you were helping us with last year?
Hello, everyone. Like you said, my name is Deanna Todd, and so this is my 13th year here in Mason City Schools. So I've taught language arts and social studies in 6th grade at MI. And so the past, 3-4 months, I stepped in as the Dean of Students, filling in for Terry Wooten, who is out on leave. So I was filling in for her, the assistant principal.
And Deanna did an excellent job doing that. And we thank you for being flexible because you stepped right out of your classroom, right into the role. And I know that's not an easy transition. So thank you for being here tonight as well.
Thank you for having me. And I loved having the opportunity to do so.
And then Mark Merzanowski, we know you well, Mark, but tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and how long, and then we'll talk a little bit later about the role we're considering as well.
Thank you, Jonathan. Been here for assistant principal with Mason Middle School, and it's just been awesome and working with all the kids. And now I have the opportunity to move into the role as a TSA supervisor for transportation, security, and attendance. So I'm really excited about that opportunity, and thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for your work and dedication to the middle school. I know that everyone knows Mr. Merz, so thank you. All right, we had one more person that is also Brittany Burlich, who is not able to make it because she's also right in the middle of doing some work in Loveland City Schools. And so she's also on the agenda tonight, and she sends her greetings as well. So she just wasn't able to be here in person, but just wanted you to know that her name is also going to come up later tonight. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us as guests tonight. We'll let you get back to what you're doing, and then we'll carry on with the rest of our meeting, if that's okay.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you, guest.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Our second item that we have for superintendent presentation is to walk through a four-phased approach. And if Christine, I think, thanks so much, or whoever's sharing the screen, I appreciate that. I wanted to just share this again. We've shared this with our families through an email, but if you're tuning into this meeting and you're not a part of, you don't have students actually in our school system, this may not be something that came across your radar yet. So I just wanted to walk through a little bit of this. One big question that we have is, what does school look like in the future? And what does school look like in 12 weeks? And how do we return back to school safely and successfully for all of our students? And so what we have done at Mason City Schools is we've done what we always try to do, and we've tried to engage our community in getting input as much as possible, because we really do believe that we are a public school, and so public voice is very valuable in the process. So we have four phases here. Phase one is the investigation and learning phase, and that's where we have collected data through surveys. We've also been meeting with both students and staff and community members through focus groups and asking them questions. We've been doing this for the last few weeks. And so that's part of phase one, in collecting and learning as much as possible. So that's that learning phase. And what does it look like? We've also reached out to several of our colleagues across the state and across the country on how they're thinking through a safe pathway back to school, and what does that look like. We work also closely with our Warren County Health Department and the state health department, and getting guidance from them as well. So that's that phase one piece, and a lot of that's through the community and partnerships. As we move into phase two is really the ideation and prototyping phase, and we're just right now this week nearing the end of phase one and heading into phase two. And so as we go into next week, we will begin to move into that prototyping and ideation phase, and really taking the input and the feedback that we've received, and hopefully building that into some kind of a continuum of service for our students. And it's also this continuum that will allow us to be flexible and hopefully agile as we know that things are most likely going to be changing, as they have been recently. As we head into next year, we anticipate that it's going to continue to have different changes thrown at us. So we want to make sure we're as flexible as possible, and we want to make sure that we have a prototype that allows us to move through that successfully for our teachers, for our students, and for our families as well. So that's at phase two, again, starting later this week and into next week. And as we move into that prototyping, we also have timed that where we're hoping to have some kind of model to move into phase three somewhere mid to late June that we can share with our community. So the idea there is we would share that model or that prototype with our community, with the hope that that would give families and business partners and everyone a chance to plan ahead and to understand a little bit of what we're trying to do and some of the things we're trying to tackle as we head into August. So again, we have about a 12 to 13 week window right now. This is part of that process. We also have guidance that is coming from the state. We have not received that yet, so that makes us a little bit tricky. We know that the Department of Education is working right now on a plan, and they're planning to give us that at some point. It was supposed to be in our email boxes last week and did not come. And so we are glad that we have a process locally that we're working through. But I was on the phone with Senator Wilson today, and he understands that we are working on this. He also understands that they're working diligently at the state level. And I think what we're learning, and all of us are learning, is that there are more questions than answers. And that's not new to us. That's kind of the world that we live in today. And so we want to thank all of our families for just being patient as we work through this process. We want you to know that we really hope to always, number one, keep our safety for our students and our staff as a paramount decision-making process as we go through any of this. But then how do we successfully move toward a place where we can get our kids back in school? Many of you know that we did a survey out to our families, and about 60% of our families said that they would be comfortable once we have safety protocols in place to send their students back to our schools, as long as we're following those guidelines. So obviously there's lots of opportunity for us to learn as we move forward and come up with a model that works for all students and all families. And so that's what we're trying to engage in now. One last thing that I'll add to this is we're really fortunate we have a good partnership with our county leadership. We have a meeting tomorrow that's involving the top 10 largest companies around the region, as well as small business and healthcare professionals and other local leaders. And we're going to come together with the hope of trying to align our work in reopening the physical school buildings, because we understand that the physical school buildings and opening those back up next year in the fall is a part of the same path as opening our economy. We know that schools are a scaffolding to the economy, so we are trying to do that in alignment with our business partners and leaders throughout the region. So that's a quick update on what's going on. I'll hit pause now. Hopefully I didn't go too quickly, but I wanted to give you a little sense of the phases, and you can see phase 4 is basically the investment and implementation. Any questions from any of the board members that would maybe have not had a chance to kind of work through this yet? And if you do, if you could, I can't see all of you at the moment, but if you could just let me know by unmuting and asking.
Hey, Jonathan, I would just say that the rest of the board and mostly for the community, the last part you talked about in terms of the joint meeting tomorrow, you're actually leading that along with Commissioner Young and the county health commissioner, if I'm
You're correct. Yep.
Three, in a joint effort to have that dialogue so that we can be aware of both the school side of opening and the business side, because parents often are the overlap there. And these meeting participants will represent a lot of employers in our region. So I appreciate the thinking about the need to do it, but I also just want to recognize you for the leadership of that group and helping them understand some of the situations that we're trying to sort out with the schools, and then proactively learning the situations they're trying to sort out with getting their employees back to work. So thank you for doing that. Just want to make sure people knew that was not just attending a meeting, but leading. And I think that's part of what we'd like to do is to be out front and help people walk through those complexities. And I appreciate that.
Thanks, Kevin. And thanks for the clarification. We do have it. I'm lucky to be co-hosting that with, like I said, we have the healthcare community, business community, and school community coming together. And I think that'll be a very profitable conversation tomorrow. Any other questions about the process or any data that we've gathered thus far?
Not a comment. This is Matt, but along the same lines, I also really appreciate it because all of this discussion signals the thoughtful way that you're going about planning for next year, that you're not getting all of our teachers in a room and saying, here's what we're going to do next year, because we don't know what next year looks like. And so engaging in this conversation with the business leaders now, you're not going to come up with the answers tomorrow, but you're involved in this dialogue with all of the key people who are going to be affected by whatever education looks like next year. And we started with our families and hearing feedback from them and our teachers and our staff. Just really kudos to you to looking at this from a holistic perspective, not committing to anything in this void of information, but positioning the district in a way that once we start to get a little more information and we get closer to next year, that we have the right people at the table and the right data to guide kind of where you're heading as you make those decisions and have those conversations. So thank you.
I'll just add, in addition to what Kevin and Matt said, that appreciate the folks who have responded to the surveys that have come out. We've probably had, a record-setting number of surveys in the last 12 months coming from Mason City Schools, and this one is probably as important as any of them as we chart, how things look come this fall. And so families, parents, your input is greatly appreciated, and feel free to connect with us if you have detailed thoughts on this stuff. We are always listening.
So as we're going through this process, one thing I will just forecast ahead is, when I talk about a continuum of service, just please understand that we're trying to be as creative as possible to meet the needs of all different parties, but also trying not to just land on one specific one-size-fits-all model. That is, our goal has really been to be flexible in this and creative. We've learned so much in the last, as we've ended the year in the last 2 months and we've gone into this mode of remote learning experience, we know that it has so much room to grow, to become better. We also know that you can't replace an in-person experience. So we're trying to figure out, how do we take the best of these worlds, anticipate what may be in the future, and really try to put that together in a comprehensive plan that really continues to create what we would call that Mason quality that we all have come to really appreciate. So thank you all for your listening and good questions, and we can move on to our next item.
Great. Our next item on the agenda is our hearing of the public. And as we've discussed in our previous meetings, due to the online format that we've got here, the public may submit comments or questions to contact Mason at masonohioschools.com, and a board member or administrator will follow up after the board meeting adjourns. I don't believe we have any hearing of the public commentary from prior meetings or things like that to address. Do we, Tracy? All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 7, administrative personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Yeah, could I just really quick walk through what this item is about, because it's a pretty comprehensive item. But for 7A, you'll see we have some resignations there. Again, we want to wish Molly Brzezinski a great Bernosky, I apologize, just a great next chapter. She is heading to a school district close to us, just south of us, that's actually close to her home as well. And so it's a new opportunity for her. And so we're really happy for her and her family. And then also with Terry Wooten, our thoughts and prayers are with her as she continues to care for her family. And so she's decided to step out of that role so that she could give her attention and time to her family and caring for them. So just want to pass that on. And then you'll see also administrative contract renewals. Every year at this time, we do renew our contracts with our administrators, and we do that on a 1 or 2 year basis. And so you can see these are the names that are coming up to be renewed. So just wanted to make sure everyone knew what was going through in this item. So, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other discussion? All right, Sean, call the roll.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hengling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Apache?
Yes.
5-0.
All right, next item on the agenda, number 8, non-district funded positions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Just wanted, you'll see on item A on here that there is information here about summer school. because of obviously that we are limited to how we can proceed, we are offering courses remotely, and we do have some limitations on the courses that we're able to offer remotely. So just if people are having questions about that, we do have some summer school opportunities if it can be remote. And so those are the pieces that I wanted to just point out.
Jonathan, thank you for doing that, addressing what we're able to address. And I think it's really important for the kids who need or want to take some courses in the summer. It's been a key component of a lot of individual students' total high school education plan, really. I'm focusing on the high school, although we could have other things in other grades, but I really appreciate the extra work to make sure that that summer program remains available.
And once we hopefully get back to some kind of normal rhythm, and we'll get back to our normal offerings as well.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other discussion? Sean, call the roll.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batching?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
5-0.
Next item on the agenda, number 9, certified personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second, whatever. We're flexible.
Any discussion?
Hey, just want to draw our attention to item C on this. This is our retirements. We have some teachers that have been serving faithfully in our district for several years, and I just want to make sure that we are thanking them, congratulating them, and wishing them the best in their next chapter. So again, just pointing that out. We have some great teachers, and retirement is their next chapter. So excited to see where they're going to go next.
Yeah, I'd like to had gotten to know Mr. Coomer over the years, and had a chance to see him as a parent of a student in his class. Appreciate over the time, over his entire career, kind of navigating some of our curriculum through the internet, the advancement of the internet, the explosion of software and programming. And he and a small group of other teachers have kind of really been at the forefront of that, providing opportunities for kids that they wouldn't have otherwise had a large hand in Interalliance, which is a program that's given a lot of our students great opportunities, and just appreciate all he's done over the years and wish him all the best. I'm sure he has a lot more on his agenda.
Thanks, Kevin. Any other discussion? Sean, call the roll.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batching?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
5-0.
All right, our next item on the agenda, number 10, supplemental personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Sean, call the roll, please.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batching?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
5-0.
All right, next item on the agenda is 11, resolution for hiring non-certified individuals. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Second.
Any discussion? All right, Sean, call the roll, please.
Patchy,
Yes.
Mr. Galvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling,
Yes.
Mr. Wise,
Yes.
Mr. Steele,
Yes.
5-0.
All right, item number 12, classified personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
On this, we have a couple things. One on B, item B, under 12, we do have retirements. So just always want to take a second to thank people for their service and wish them well on their next step. And then we also have in this section appointments. We have lots of different things that are happening, but one that I just want to make sure is seen. The Molly Smith is coming in as a mental wellness coordinator. That's not a new position. It's actually just filling the gap. We had our last person that was in that role, served here a year, did a great job, and is moving on to new opportunities. And so we're excited for her, but also excited that we had Molly, who has been serving on the team as part of a grant opportunity. So she's been doing that work, and she has relationships built with our families, and has been actually over the summer, she's been one of the people helping with the food delivery on a weekly basis. So we're just happy to welcome her on, and the other folks that are joining us as substitute teachers and seasonal help as well.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other discussion? Sean, call the roll, please.
Mr. Galvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling,
Yes.
Mr. Wise,
Yes.
Mr. Steele,
Yes.
Mrs. Patchy,
Yes.
5-0.
All right, item number 13, certified personnel additional duties. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Item B on here, special services. I just want to remind people of the context here. We had a late vacancy last year where Jessica Stevens, if you remember, Jessica, great team member, moved to a different district, and we asked Jody to step into her role. And Jody has done a fabulous job stepping in and overseeing that position. But that left a vacancy at our high school for overseeing special education at the high school and secondary. And so Gina Fox, being a teacher, also looking to get into leadership and growing as a leader, stepped into that role as an interim. And so because of our current circumstances, instead of us trying to reimagine and reset that whole entire positioning, we asked both of those great leaders to continue to be in those roles for one more year while we have time to transition smoothly into next year with our families, with students with special needs. And so there's continuity to the service. And then as we settle into next year, we will reevaluate that in January early and begin to go through that process again. So thank you to Jody and also to Gina for stepping into that. But this is what that compensation is for stepping into the administration role.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any other discussion? Sean, please call the roll.
Mrs. Yingling,
Did you call my,
I think that was you, Connie.
did you call? Yes.
I did.
I've got a bad
Mr. Wise?
connection. Sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Steele,
Yes.
Mrs. Batching,
Yes.
Mr. Galvin,
Yes.
5-0.
All right. Next item on the agenda, we're on 14 contracted personnel, independent contracts. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second in there? I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Sean, call the roll.
Mr. Wise,
Yes.
Mr. Steele,
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Batching,
Yes.
Mr. Galvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling,
Yes.
5-0.
All right. Next item on the agenda, number 15, new instructional materials recommendations, first reading. Is there a motion?
So in this, there will be no vote, but it is a first reading of this material. This was brought forward during the student achievement meeting a couple times ago. And so there are notes there and some information if people want to link into that and see that. And if anyone has specific questions, I'm sure Amy Brennan would be happy to help them if they wanted to take a closer look. Now, there will be a second reading at our next meeting before they get voted.
I'll take Amy's offer on that and reach out, maybe stop in and take a look at a few of these.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan.
I do have copies.
Thanks.
And I do have copies to review in my office. So please do reach out. We may just need to make sure that we coordinate so we can get you in to access them.
All right. Thank you.
And we'll make sure that with the influx of interest in reviewing these, we follow the social distancing protocol. So we might have to schedule some appointments there for people.
I find when reviewing government history textbooks, social distancing is not a problem. No one really wants to be around you.
Well, we'll have to make sure you're masked up then anyways. All right.
Ed, you'll answer to the teacher comment, Kevin.
Next item is number 16, action items, superintendent's recommendations. We've got our Butler County ESC MOU. We have our Seesaw Learning contract there. We have the item C, Stark Portage Area Computer Consortium combined contract. D is the Next Step Technology agreement. E is book disposals. F, repairs to the high school bus lot by Pinnacle. And G, transportation director and security administrator job description. Do I have a motion?
So
Maybe just a technical question.
Yeah, one thing
Refresh
that we
the
need to,
agenda.
so that
Kevin.
if you could refresh the agenda, whoever's sharing it really quick.
Mhm.
If you just said, yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah, so we've got, I've read the items that are on the most updated agenda. That's what should be showing now. Is that what everybody's seeing?
Yep, it's coming through. 1 second.
Yes.
And just behind the curtain here as the board president, I've got a separate screen from my Zoom screen. So I've got my Google Chrome screen that has the agenda up just in case of technical difficulties with the Zoom connection. I can carry on reading the agenda despite whatever the glitches in our connection might be. So item 16, action item, superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
All right. Any discussion?
I'll just, as you go through these, there's item A is an agreement for a service for students. Seesaw learning, really quickly, that as we've gotten feedback from our families and our students, one thing we heard in our earlier childhood or younger grades is that our families, if we're going to be in any kind of a remote learning experience, we want to make sure that's as convenient as possible. This is a platform that allows that to be even more convenient. It's just a preparation, and whether we're in person or remote, this does the job for both places well. So that's why we've chosen this, because it has the versatility of that. The Spark and Next Step networking information, those are both cost savings and also a transition to a service for our student information system. And so supporting that system, that's a very important and vital system to our district, but also there's some opportunity for some cost savings there that Christine and her team have worked diligently to work toward as we've looked at some cost savings pieces. Book disposal happens each and every year. We continue to rotate in new books and rotate out others. And then the bus lot, Todd has worked with our permanent improvement budget. We've gone through that and had to prioritize also in efforts to do some cost savings with the $2 million cuts that we received. And so one of the priorities was to make sure that we did some proactive drainage on that back lot, because of, if you looked through the contract, we have so much cracking going on throughout that it's causing some major issues, and it will become a much bigger cost if we don't address it sooner than later. So he's done a nice job prioritizing. And then you can see the transportation director and security administrator job description. That is we've added to that position. That's not just the traditional job that it has been the transportation department. We've actually added responsibility. So that person, and you saw Mark Mrzanowski earlier tonight talk about that. That is a position that will encompass much more. It's a more comprehensive look, and it also helps us with alignment with safety across the district. So they'll be continuing to work closely with Todd Petrie and his team on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other discussion? All right. Sean, call the roll, please.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. England?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
All right. Item number 17, treasurer's report. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just highlight a couple things in this report section. So our 5-year forecast, item F, is in here for approval. Just a couple reminders. We approve our 5-year forecast at least twice a year. So once in the fall, which we did last year in October, and once in the spring, which we're doing here tonight. As you can imagine, we saw a lot of changes from last fall to the spring. We had the operating levy passed here last month. We've had obviously the impact of COVID-19, not only locally on some of our estimates and projections, but also from the state as well. So all of those things are factored into forecast and reflected in the notes and assumptions. Also, in additional notes, the Finance Committee has met and reviewed the details of the forecast, as well as the board as a whole here in the most recent work session meeting, where we had a chance to work through a lot of those changes and details. Second thing I wanted to point out, item G, the new funds. There's 2 new funds we're approving, and this is related to the COVID-19 or some of the federal money that we're receiving. And so these are the new funds that we will account for those dollars in. Again, just to give a little bit of context, the state is giving us a little bit of money from the CARES Act, which is the federal act. We're getting about $150,000 of new revenue. But at the same time, we were cut $2.1 million this fiscal year 20, and we're anticipating potential additional reductions from the state next year as well. So just a little bit of context on that one. And the last one I wanted to highlight is item H, donations. Several donations from local community members and area businesses, and we always appreciate the people who partner with us and with our kids in various activities around the district.
Thank you, Sean. Any other discussion?
One item, just for the record, on the 5-year forecast, we've got a slight modification to how we're publishing that this year, that we're using an additional line 2.06 and line 5.03 to reflect, what we expect to be potential state funding cuts that will be a result of the pandemic. So the reason I want to just bring that up publicly is because often people will look back in history at former 5-year forecasts, and when they see something that's different, it'll cause a question to arise. And in this case, it's just the fact that we're obligated to publish this forecast at a time where we know very little about the details of a future state funding cut, but we certainly know that one is imminent. And so I like the way you've done this, Sean, but I did want to just mark that as a note on here so that hopefully in the future we don't use those lines for that purpose.
Thank you, Kevin. That is a great point.
Along those lines,
we have used.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, we have used a couple lines here that we don't normally use. You're exactly right. I appreciate you pointing that out. And to your point, the concept that we're trying to show here is that whatever kind of reduction we get from the state, our goal and what we plan on doing is having some kind of offsetting reduction in expenses so that we are we're showing a net zero on that impact.
I was just going to say, Sean, on that point, that we anticipate the cuts are coming, and we have the offset, equal, reduction on the spending side, but that's a placeholder anticipating that those cuts will likely be coming, and our goal will be to make offsetting cuts, but that number doesn't represent any decision that's been made about anything that we would do, and that we'll be spending our time, between now and the time that we have to make a decision on any of that kind of stuff, working with our key partners, to figure out how we're going to do that. That being something that is an unknown at this point. So thanks for your work on that.
All right. Any other discussion? Sean, call the roll.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
5-0.
All right. Next item on the agenda, committee reports. We've got, we've had, I guess, the Mason Schools Foundation Board met in May.
I think, Tracy, were you a part of the
Charles, would you like?
Schools Foundation board?
I was, and I'd be glad to give an update. The Mason Schools Foundation is just so proud of our teachers and the work that they have been doing. Because of the pandemic, normally we would have an April, all of our grants would have been due in April 1st. Of course, that did not make sense in this time period when people were working very hard to do remote learning. And so the board has come up with what I think is going to be a terrific idea, which is actually this week to allow to have rolling grant applications so that teachers and our staff are able to apply just in time now that they can start to think about. And even with what the information that Mr. Cooper shared earlier in the meeting, that we're still thinking about what next year will look like. And so in those different iterations, it's going to allow our staff to have access to resources when they need them. So just appreciate that we have a board that thinks like that. The other great news, now, and I'm not going to steal their thunder and tell you, but I'll leave you with a secret. We had the most nominations we have ever had for our teachers who have gone above and beyond. In fact, it was many of the people reading the nominations were in tears as students, parents, colleagues couldn't gush more about the above and beyond efforts that our teachers were doing. And so along with being above and beyond, even in a time period where as a foundation, we're just determining what the gala, for instance, might look like for next year and not knowing for sure all of our revenues, as a show of faith and belief in who our staff are, they have decided to actually grant all of those above and beyond award winners $500 each, the most in district history. And normally we only give an elementary and a secondary grant, and we actually decided this year it was too great. We had to give one to each, to a staff member from each school. So be on the lookout as the foundation announces who those winners are.
That's great. Thanks so much to the foundation for that generosity, and the teachers who made that decision so difficult for them, or so easy, depending on how you looked at it. Next, we got Student Achievement Committee that met in April and May. Tracy, were you at those ones as well?
I'll let Amy
I was there.
do student achievement.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to share. And Desiree and Connie, you're welcome to jump in at any time. Our April meeting, we had two of our learning experience designers, Erin Roberts and Danielle Creamer, shared our process for launching our remote learning experience and sort of what those initial stages look like and how we went about getting our teachers ready to really flip that switch to a remote experience. And we also heard from Micah Failer, our social studies teacher leader, one of them at the high school, who presented the textbooks that you had a first reading of or first view of today, and reviewed the very thoughtful and thorough process that his department had gone through to land on those selections. And then we had our May meeting just last week. And at that meeting, Jonathan shared the 4-phase approach to planning for next year that he shared with all of us here this evening. I shared some of our initial findings from our parent survey, from our student survey, and then from building focus groups that we've been doing with teachers. And then as teams, we reviewed 6 potential options. None of them we were clear would probably be where Mason City Schools will land, but the discussion about the pros and cons of each of those approaches really are helpful in our data collection phase to think about all of the various aspects that we need to be considering as we think about what next year might look like, and was really grateful for the wonderful input of all of our Student Achievement Committee members in that discussion.
Thanks, Amy.
I will say, I appreciated so much at that meeting, the last one we had in May. I appreciate so much that we have a staff supported by other members of the community that are truly being open-minded, brainstorming as to what education is going to look like in the future. It's going to change, and in many ways, I think it will never be the same again. but I really applaud Jonathan and you, Amy, for setting up a way for us to gather that information from all of our stakeholders. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.
All right, thank you guys. Next item is the Finance Committee. We met in April and May. Kevin, do you want to touch on that?
What I like is that the agenda is written out pretty well here. I think it covers most of what we've done, and a large part of the discussion, treasurer's report reflected that work. So I don't think any additional comments are necessary.
Agreed. Yeah, those can be reviewed. Anybody who'd like to see, we've got those items there on the online agenda that's available on board docs. Next is the Facilities Committee in April.
Yes.
Todd, do you want to go over that for us?
That one too.
That'd be great.
Kevin, are you wanting to go over it?
Nope. Go right
Okay,
ahead, Todd.
in April, we went over various projects to look at this summer. One is the pavement, which you voted on tonight, and also the air tower, the cooling tower at the high school that's 20 years old. That absolutely needs to be replaced, and we're working through that now, seeing if we have to publicly bid that, which is something we may have to do. Outside of that, we're looking at tennis court repair and a few other repairs around the district. This summer, with where we're at with the state, it's going to be more low-key than anything else.
Thanks, Todd. Next item, Arts and Activities Council met May 12th and approved a number of plays for the fall. So be on the lookout for those as we return to the new normal this coming fall semester, and excited for those plays. And Tracy, did you want to weigh in?
Just one particular great thing there is the spring musical for all of our seniors that, you know, our hearts go out to our athletes who miss spring seasons, and that spring musical, those fantastic actors and actresses. And so one thing that I'm so excited about, Alan, our director, they're going to do Mamma Mia, which they would have done this spring, they'll do it next spring. And at that Saturday show, all the seniors who would have been obviously in there, if you've ever seen Mamma Mia, like the last 20 minutes is a huge kind of production, song and dance, and all the seniors had a chance to be and perform on that Saturday show. So just another way that our staff just continues to think about how we can lift people up during this time.
Awesome.
Thanks, Tracy. All right, moving on, legislative update, item 19. Jonathan?
Yeah, so it's an active time, as you can imagine, at the legislative level. The General Assembly is considering all kinds of requests from school districts across the state. As we lost the $2 million over the last 2 months in our budget cuts, there are efforts for some possible relief funds for next year. That's something that's being looked at. There are some other creative solutions that are being proposed for how we can balance our budgets. And there are also a lot of conversation around safety in returning to school in the fall and what that looks like to open up our buildings. And so that conversation is happening at the Department of Health, Department of Education, but also in the legislature as well, and trying to figure out what pieces need to be changed or adjusted as we move back to give us flexibility as a school district. And so, yeah, there's nothing new to share, but there are ideas that are being brought forth to be in the next education bill. And once I know that number, which has not been determined yet, I will share that, and so that we can monitor and and watch that go through the House or the Senate. I talked with Senator Wilson today, and he's engaged, locked in. He understands what we need at our local level and is listening. And so he's also advocating. He has a finance committee meeting, I know, tomorrow as well, to hopefully advocate on our behalf.
Thanks, Jonathan. All right, moving right along, we've got item number 20, administrator commentary.
Yeah, could we get an update around, and if we could go in the order that you're normally used to, that would be probably most helpful.
Yeah, all the faces might be different depending on whose screen you're looking at, so normal order is preferred.
So, thanks. So Tracy, if you want to kick it off, and we'll just kind of visually work our way through the Harvard room, if you could imagine that for just a minute.
I'd be glad to do that. Comets are known as soaring, and we've had so many comets soaring over the last few months, just doing above and beyond things. I wanted to recognize 3 different opportunities where our comets have been on kind of the national floor, and it's starting in April. One of our 2010 graduates, Dr. Margaret Zhang, who graduated in Mason in 2010, as an alum, has been on the front line of the COVID pandemic at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. She was supposed to be not working, went in, has just been a super soldier in this fight, and was featured in the New York Times and the New Yorker as well. So incredibly proud of her and her representing in this national pandemic, that we have comets who are all over the world doing good things. In that same spirit, in the June 1st episode, or June 1st edition of People magazine, one of our very own newest grads, 2020 grad, Hannah Humes, is featured as a class act story. So just encourage folks to get that magazine and know that we have a Mason representation there. And then finally, just a thank you to one of our parents, Sally McDonald, who was so proud of all of the things that had happened during Operation Diploma Delivery, that she just took it upon herself to share that news with Willie Geist of the Today Show, and got some national coverage for what we were doing. So just have so many ways that our comets shine all the time, and it's kind of fun to see the world wake up to the things that we know, that this is a pretty special community that has some pretty spectacular people.
Thanks, Tracy. I think Amy is next.
I'll jump in. Yeah, thank you. So in this last week of the school year, I just wanted to give a special thank you to our educators, all of our staff, our parents, and especially our students for their amazing flexibility and adaptability and persistence as we have all transitioned to this new remote learning reality. I grabbed just a handful of numbers just to kind of give you a little bit of a picture of some of the activity that's happened over these past 11 weeks. In grades K through 6, we've had an average of 450 interactive video-based morning meetings each week that are focused on building and maintaining classroom culture for our elementary students. In grades 7 through 12, just in the past month, we have had over 448,000 Schoology student sessions as students log in to access their remote learning experiences. Our reading intervention teachers have spent an average of 2,000 minutes per day collectively in doing live video instruction, providing reading support to students. We have our intervention specialists have developed and written in coordination with students and families 951 individualized remote learning plans to help support our learners with IEPs and make sure that they had a plan that worked for them during this time. And those teams have had 428 virtual IEP and ETR evaluation meetings, something that I think if you'd asked us a few months ago, did we think that could happen? We would have really maybe scratched our heads. So Our educators, our students, our families just have amazed us with all that they've done. I could go on with numbers, but I hope this provides at least a little bit of a snapshot of the incredible things that have happened. And we're just so grateful to all of our community for how they've adjusted and adapted over these past few months. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Let's see, do we have Tanya next?
Yes. So from our HR department, as we're going into the 2020-21 hiring season, we're taking time to evaluate each of our open positions, and we're only replacing those that we deem essential at the start of the school year. We're currently pressing pause on a teaching position and intervention specialist position, as well as a transportation department essential, in order to be fiscally responsive to what's happening at the state level. On a brighter note, our HR department is also recognizing our Mason City Schools retirees with gifts. And so we've sent a nice planter to them, as well as a piece of Mason City Schools luggage. So that's how we're recognizing our retirees in our first wave. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. And yes, thanks for both the good and the bad. Sometimes we are not immune to what's going on out in the world, but we are as well situated as anybody to plan, prepare for, and deal with whatever the challenges are going forward with respect to our hirings. Up next, Christine.
I have one additional stat to add to Amy's, which kind of stood out to me. So for our virtual remote learning, our Google Meets went up 18,000%. So that was just a significant statistic when you talk about percentages. So that was pretty fascinating over the last 3 months. So transitioning into moving forward, as you approved 2 contracts this evening for a cost savings. So our student information system really is an anchor for us. It helps to drive everything that we do, grades, et cetera. So we're not transitioning student information systems, we're transitioning the hosting and the support of that. So that is going to result in a cost savings. And in addition, a secondary cost savings that we're going to be able to realize is transitioning our website from currently being hosted to hosting it and designing it ourselves. So the COVID-19 site that we've used this year that was on WordPress, we'll be transitioning to WordPress. So we'll be able to do a lot more creative things, listening to the feedback from our families and from our staff and from our students as to what should be there. So we'll be able to be a lot more responsive in that while we're saving money. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Let's see, we've got Todd next.
Yes, this weekend, as I'm sure all of you were part of, which I wanted to thank you for being part of that, was Operation Diploma Delivery, which was Friday. I have to tell you, I walked away from that just feeling so blessed to be able to be a leader of over 100 people who just did an absolutely outstanding top level job. And that was our Mason bus drivers. They were outstanding in the way that they handled things, met with all the kids, were very social with people. I mean, it brought a tear to my eye more than once. But behind the scenes, there were a handful of people that I have to just really give a special thanks to. Clearly, one is Angie Ingen at the high school, Carolyn Thornton, our transportation director, who is retiring, Sean Wilson, she's one of our transportation supervisor, Brandon Rompes, he is one of the assistant principals at the high school. And last but not least is Tracy Carson, our public relations officer. And I have to tell you, Tracy not only was the thread in the fabric of making the diploma delivery a success, but also the virtual graduation as well as the parade that took place through town. And I have to tell you, I've worked with a lot of people, and she really just brought it all together to make Mason shine in the way that people like me chose to work here to be part of. So with that said, I'd like to give a special thanks to everyone involved with the Operation Diploma Delivery, and actually all 5 board members were there. How many school districts would have something during a work day and all 5 board members are there? Mason just has a lot to be thankful for, and I want you all to know I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you, Todd. Sean?
I just wanted to thank a couple different people. One of the many impacts of COVID has been issuing a lot of refunds back out to families around the district. So I wanted to thank the office staff, the administrative assistants all around the district who have compiled that data, sent it over to Erica Hood in the fiscal office, and she has processed so far 1,227 refund checks with more to go. So appreciate their teamwork to get those back out to families.
Thank you, Sean. Jonathan?
Yeah, we thanked a lot of people. I just want to continue to thank our children's service, food service employees. This is our last Wednesday tomorrow, handing out food for our regular year. And so just thanking all of them because they've been out there. They have not missed a beat. They have actually served, I believe it's somewhere around almost 30,000 meals. And that's both when they serve a meal, it's a breakfast and a lunch meal. And on Wednesdays, they've transitioned that to hot meals. So when people come through, they get a hot meal as they go through. So just want to thank them for that. And just if you like statistics, it's about, I think it was about 2,400 half gallons of milk. So lots of milk was handed out. And I did watch it. It's a pretty amazing system. Our families will continue to have a plan for food security as they move forward. We continue to work with both Joshua's Place and Comet Cupboard. And so our families will continue to have food throughout the whole summer. So that is a great offering and a great thing our community has been able to put together in partnerships. Speaking of partnerships, I also want to thank the City of Mason for being a great partner as we had this huge experience designed both virtually and in person for our graduates. We had signage going up and down Mason Montgomery, and we had other things, and the city was very supportive in helping us accomplish a dream that Todd mentioned that Tracy and crew have come up with, and they were great partners, as well as the Deerfield Township. They were just great partners along the way. I'm on a call with them weekly, and so we've been giving updates on how that process has gone. And so just want to thank them for working with us and their patience as we are trying to come up with creative ways to meet the needs of our families and our students. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Jonathan. Our next item on the agenda, board commentary. I will kick it to Desiree.
Thanks, Charles. So being my first year on the board, like I expressed in a text, I don't really have a baseline to compare graduation to, but I have to mimic Todd, and the Operation Diploma Delivery was absolutely amazing. And getting to have that personalized experience with 30 families and graduates was priceless. Christine and I on the bus, we had a great time. The bus drivers, I can't even tell you how much preparation they put into being able to get down the cul-de-sacs and get turned around, and coordinating with the families and making sure everyone was accommodated on the timeline. So, and it was great getting to know those folks too. And wow, what amazing transportation folks we have, for sure. They, you know, they took a lot of their own time to plan and make sure that was very special. And I'd have to mention, give a shout out to Marsha Wise for her idea of the photos on Mason Montgomery Road. I know Kevin and her put in a lot of time preparing that, and it was neat to see. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't real cooperative for the week, the monsoon storms and whatnot, but they weathered okay. And come Friday on Diploma Delivery Day, they were all up and standing and facing the right way. So that was wonderful. And thank you for all the work you put into that. And then the brainchild of Tracy. I have to say I had doubts of how we would coordinate 800 plus diploma deliveries and the bus decorations, and it just went off. Maybe there were some wrinkles behind the scenes, but to me, it just looked like it was perfection. So thank you for that. And it was just so special to be a part of that. I don't know what we'll do next year because it seems like it really went over well.
Thank you, Desiree. Matt?
Thanks, Charles. Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit. I'm trying to edit a little bit because there's just so much to talk about as we wrap up the school year. But I'll start by saying, this district leadership and staff and teachers has done such an amazing job in the face of so many unknowns and so many curveballs that hopefully we'll never experience again. I mean, hopefully, surely that we won't go through this again. If we do, I'm glad that we have the folks sitting in the seats that we do in Mason. We're lucky for that. But this past weekend was obviously the culmination of so many creative ways that the district has come up with to make, I mean, lemonade out of lemons, I guess, is the best expression. That, we've always tried to take what we're given and make the best we can of it. And you all knocked it out of the park on graduation and recognizing our seniors. And so just kudos to Todd, Tracy, Jonathan, Angie. Again, there's so many people that I don't, but can't, there's no way we could get through all the names that we would have to properly thank for all the work that went into all of the events this weekend. And I want to give a special thank you to our bus drivers. It's one of the things that gets me teary as I think about all the things that have happened since we shut down schools, is the loss of in-person personal contact between our kids and our staff. And we've talked a lot about the idea that our bus drivers start each student's day and end each student's day. They start the career and they end the career. Well, they don't always end the career, but they did this year. And I'm so happy that they got to play such a central role in some of the just most touching and most impactful events that we've done. And I got to experience two of them back to back. We had the birthday bus the day before my twin son's birthday. It was just incredible, and it was just a great experience for our family. But then Diploma Delivery, I told everybody who would listen and the families that I talked to how excited I was that our bus drivers got to play such a central role in that, because they just don't get to shine in that way. They shine in the role, which is important, but the community doesn't see it. So, and really, I think the most amazing part about the whole weekend to me was that we've talked about Mason being a big place, right? And certainly we have the biggest high school in Ohio. But holy cow, did it feel small this weekend? I mean, that speaks to just the feat that you all accomplished in this. And I heard that from every single person I heard speak about it. And I think we're going to find that in the next year, we're going to have to, and we should find some ways to repeat a bit of the community connection to honoring our seniors, because that is just something that we shouldn't give up next year and the years forward. So thank you everybody for that amazing experience for my family, for me, but for the community too. And certainly our seniors. It's funny. I think about them as almost secondary, is that we all got to enjoy this event in so many ways, that especially for them, it was so special. And it's just really awesome. And then two, I just want to say that this is a weird time. We're wrapping up a really strange experience that's been trying on all of us. We've talked about the mental wellness impact that this has, and the idea that we're all grieving. And I'll admit that I've had myself on mute tonight even more than I normally would, because we're having a rough night. And again, I'm going to get teary, but I think that the part of that is that we're wrapping up a school year, and there are a lot of feelings about that. There's lack of an opportunity to celebrate together for our students. And that goes for our teachers too. I've thought a lot about the idea of teachers having left on March 13th or whatever day it was, not knowing that they wouldn't see their students again, right? And the classrooms were just kind of preserved as they were. And in the last few weeks, our teachers have had to go back into their classrooms. And I just couldn't imagine having to do this and gathering all the students' stuff, walking into that empty classroom. And so I just say again that I know that this has an emotional impact on all of us, families, our staff. And I hope that as the school year wraps up, people have some time and an opportunity to take care of themselves a little bit, to take a breath, first of all, right? Because this has been hard. Take a breath, enjoy some time with your families, and just relax a bit and just know that you did a fantastic job. And we're so grateful for that.
Thank you, Matt. Kevin?
Yeah, I'll echo the thank you to the entire leadership team and Todd, Tracy. I know Angie had a big hand in the planning, but the diploma delivery was unique. And I also want to just say how terrific it was to have the bus drivers so integral in that entire experience. Kelvin Scott drove our bus. He did a great job driving, but I was amazed at how many of those kids who we recognized with their diploma who probably hadn't been on a bus in a while. He had a fourth grade experience. He knew him from seventh grade. He knew him from first grade. And just that kind of continuity and community engagement, I think, really shown through Kelvin. And I know his colleagues on all the other buses. So I really appreciate how that all came out. I think some new traditions arose out of this, which I am sure in some way will sustain. It was a pleasure to be part of the recognition of the Mason Montgomery moment. And I want to thank each of you. The 5 board members personally financed that effort. It wasn't real expensive, but it was important for us as a group to not have district dollars going against that particular activity, and just have a chance to genuinely recognize our seniors in a way. I want to thank all the angels who walked up and down Mason Montgomery and kind of helped keep those signs up. Not only did those students survive, they were born right around 9/11. They graduated out of the pandemic, but the last little bit, the least important, was that their signs survived an unprecedented monsoon earlier last week, and they didn't fall. We had a few people having to help keep them up, but that was terrific. And thank you, Desiree. I know Marcia will appreciate your comment, but she had a lot of help too. She'll be the first one to say, putting those up. Thank you to Connie for taking those down, and all the volunteers that were ready every night to help. And it just takes that kind of group to do that. And then last, honestly, I want to thank God for a safe parade. My goodness, the parade was an absolute experience. And it really brought, I appreciate all the community that came out to see that. And last, sorry, I also wanted to say that the virtual graduation, I cannot imagine the amount of time that was put in to get that just right, and it came off without a hitch. I know that the producers of that probably saw hitches, but none of us saw any hitches. It was absolutely awesome. And I think we saw on Facebook signs of families gathering in their basements to watch, and so we made the best out of that, I think. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate everybody's commitment to that, creativity. And whenever anything like that happens, Tracy's fingerprints are on them. And so she often steps aside to share the credit with others, but I can't let it pass to reiterate that thing. So thanks to everybody finishing the school year, all of our teachers, staff, and everybody kind of getting through the finish line here this week. And we'll be preparing for a transition into next year. We'll have a bias for getting back to normal, but we will be ready and flexible to react to whatever the conditions are that we face. And so thanks to everyone for their leadership throughout all of this, and certainly to Jonathan for marshaling it together and being face of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Connie?
Yeah, this one will be a tough one to get through for me. I can't say that I've ever been more proud to live where I live in this community than I have been in the past week. Excuse me. I'm just amazed always, but so much so this past week, at how our community comes together to make sure that our students and our families are taken care of. And the most touching of it for me lately has been graduation, and how fate would try to take that wonderful moment that those kids earned and worked so hard for, tried to take it away from them. But the angels that we mentioned tonight, the community members, Marcia being one, I've renamed that project Picks on Sticks. But I do agree, it will be something that people will remember forever. I think it will stay in this community from now on as a part of our celebratory process at graduation. The diploma delivery, I thought it was a great idea. I had no idea how much people were going to pour their most sensitivity and their most love and their most care into that project. And the part that touched me the most, every house we went to, we were greeted with people who sincerely had so much gratitude. They were crying and they made me cry. And I think that in so many ways, in trying to protect those kids from what we weren't about to let be taken from them, I don't think anybody ever did it better than Mason did it this past week. I really don't. The team that we have is remarkable. The video, I wasn't real sure how you all were going to do that. The pictures with names, I could conceive that idea, but pulling out the seniors for the performances, it felt like a full ceremony, almost in Centos, like we didn't miss a beat, and everything else we did, we picked up the extra. It was phenomenal. The tassel turning live at the end of that, genius. The parade was probably the culmination to all of this, that you have to leave it and say, how does it get any better than this? I was so touched by how many parents or adults drove the car so the kids stayed safe and didn't have to worry about it. And they were hanging out the windows in the back of the truck and in the sunroof with the dog and the signs. And it was just remarkable. I had so much fun. My husband and I drove around that evening, beeping our horn and kids waving back and everybody on the same page. What do you mean the biggest high school in the state? Everybody's on the same page here. It's so friendly. It's so remarkable. A lot of people came forward in a big way, but there's something I wrote for tonight because I was afraid I couldn't do it well enough off the tip of my tongue. Of all the preparation activity that has taken place in the past 4 weeks, in particular, I'd like to recognize one special individual. An individual whose picture you never saw. Someone who was heavily involved in all the activities, all the planning and scheming, as well as bringing groups together to support our graduates. And the most significant group I think that came together was, as has been mentioned, our bus drivers, our transportation department, and my driver, Jesse, who brought the speaker playing Pomp and Circumstance, which we were able to make work on most of the other buses as well, thanks to modern technology. But my driver, Jesse, gets a big kudo for that one. But back to my diatribe here. The person that I'm thinking of has carefully coordinated and oversaw most of the graduation preparations and creativity, and did so in the most sincere and ongoing selfless service to our schools that we have become accustomed to seeing from her. Tracy Carson, I'm sad this is on electronic media. I was going to make you stand and be recognized appropriately. I'll let you just wave to all our viewers. You've outdone yourself. You've outdone yourself. And the most important thing is what you gave to the class of 22. You gave them what they deserved and what fate couldn't steal from them. Thank you, as well as all the other people that worked that day. It brought me to tears again. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. You guys make a hard act to follow. You know, everything that everybody said is so true, and I would just echo those comments, those thanks, those individual call outs. I do want to add a note that we mourn the passing of Debbie Darland last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, excuse me. Somebody who was another one of those behind the scenes people whose face you don't see a lot on publications and things like that, but who's worked at Mason City Schools for over 20 years. Somebody responsible for the renting and use of our facilities, both by school groups and outside community groups. And so to Debbie and her family, we are very sorry to see her move on to a better place. I also want to acknowledge the American Legion, Joe Barpost and Dave Charpentier, for making the most of what is no doubt an unprecedented Memorial Day celebration yesterday, putting on a very nice virtual parade, and again, working with some constraints that we've also been faced with, and also just acknowledging those in the community who took the time to commemorate those who have sacrificed their lives and their family that they've left behind, serving our country. We have, I think, one of the most cognizant communities that there is in terms of honoring service members to our country. We've got a great memorial there at the Municipal Center. The American Legion does great work throughout the year, not just on Memorial Day, not just on Veterans Day, and we're able to enjoy a lot of those things this weekend. The diploma delivery, the virtual graduation, an extra day off, all of that with the context and the backdrop of those who've really paid the ultimate price and sacrificed and served our country. So on behalf of the board and the whole district, we acknowledge and thank you all. And then lastly, I will just say an echo to the class of 2020, again, and congratulations. And this was my third graduation weekend as a board member, the first two being down in Cintas. I got to shake very few hands this time around. I don't think I shook any hands, actually. Did a couple elbow bumps, but I would absolutely take this weekend over what has been the normal graduation process for me, which is shaking hands, with probably about 200 to 300 graduates as they cross the stage, and just fleetingly, congratulating them without really, getting to know them much more than just their name as they're walking past, and brief look at their face. Getting to go out into the neighborhoods of our community, see graduates with their families so proud of them, and celebrating them, their neighbors coming out. That was the coolest thing for me, is seeing kind of some neighbors that knew what was going on, some neighbors that came out in their PJs with coffee and were just coming out to get the paper at the end of the driveway, and saw, sort of a block party show up across the street. It just really made, I think somebody else said it best, made our community feel that much smaller and that much tighter knit. You took what was typically a celebration for just, the graduates and their families, and extended it to the entire community. And it was just a special memory, and it will, class of 2020, some of these traditions will carry forward. But you will always be the first for these moments that were created this year. So again, congratulations to you all. And with that, I believe we are going to move back into executive session. If I can pull up my...
Charles, we have a reason posted on the screen, but I will also send everyone a link as we end this meeting to your email.
Do we need to have the close to vote?
Yeah.
We lost Charles. Technical.
Nope, no adjournment. We'll go to executive session.
Right. So.
Yep.
Yeah, we see the motion to move there.
Yep. I'll do a motion. I'll read it.
I'll motion.
Okay.
Second.
You can read the whole thing. Yeah. Okay. On the screen.
So, Sean, I guess we need a vote.
And we're going into executive session. Sean, I'll go ahead and read this really quickly. Is that okay?
Yep, that's great.
Yeah, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of public employees or officials. Sorry, it's very small on my screen. Preparing or conducting or reviewing negotiations and bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation and other terms and conditions of their employment.
Sorry about that. Computer battery died, but I made it back to the vote here.
Welcome back.
So we have a motion, a second on the table. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
So we'll leave this meeting, everybody.
Yep, we can leave this meeting, and then I'll send you a link for executive session in your email. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you.
Everyone have a great night.
Bye, guys. Miss you.